some more examples here. Red. We have our red here. We have some red in the upholstery. A bit of red there. This is a project I did in London, so I had red as the accent. I brought it here. I have it in some art in a carpet, and the rest is achromatic scheme, white and gray. So what we saw before is when you have an achromatic scheme, a fully saturated color is a great choice for an accent. And here we have wine red, one of the trend colors, and this is being used as an accent in a bathroom, on the bathtub, on the little elephant stool, a bit on a chair, a bit on the towels. So you can enliven bathrooms with accent colors and towels and a little bit of accessories quite easily. And a few more red accents here. We see the sofa and the lampshade. Do think about lampshades. You can do a lot with lampshades. They can really add some interesting texture and color into a space. And then the choice of some flowers. Instead of choosing blue flowers or yellow flowers, you choose the accent color as your flowers, and it provides a connection. And here, pale green, I'm putting this in because this is a big trend color now for the next few years. So you'll see a lot of pale green around. And as I said before, you don't need to have a fully saturated color as an accent. You can use pastels, but you have to put them around the space. With a lot of product being produced now, because pale green is a trend color, you will have an option to choose quite a bit in this color that you can use as accents around a space. Here we see some of the greens. Green, very popular color now as a trend color. So we see some greens coming around in the space, and some pale greens. This is a very good example of what I mean about that very pale green, which is the trend color being used on a throw, on a cushion, and again, a couple of little candle holders. So you can be very subtle with your accent. But again, without the green, yeah, it'll look very nice, but the green is adding a little bit of an updated look to the space. The same with pale pink, another big trend color right now. And in interiors, trend colors last 5 or 10 years, so this will be around quite a while. And again, you'll see a lot of product around in pale pink, and you can really consider using pale pinks and pale greens, pale blues as accent colors. And here, once again, just some more examples of the pale pink. Throws, cushions, flowers. When in doubt, what to do in a room, think throws, cushions, flowers. You can create a nice accent scheme just by using those 3 items. Here we have a pale pink chair, we've got pale pink on the wall back here, we've got pale pink and gray in the textiles, and even these which are a pink-orange color, which is creating a lovely scheme. And then flamingo pink, all the kinds of pinks are really big, and they've been big since the turn of the century. When we had millennium pink coming out. So we'll see a lot of pink. We will continue to see a lot of pink. So here we've got this very bright, saturated flamingo pink. Here and here as well. This is a very good use of the pink because, again, you see it all around the space. So if you can bounce your eye around, you're doing well. If you can bounce your eye around the space, you're doing very well. And then violet, all these pale ice cream colors, pistachio green, pale peach, pale violet, pale pink, all very important colors for trend colors. And again, we see them here as accent colors. Pale violet is considered a very feminine color, so it's good for girls' rooms, things like that. And again, throws, remember what I said, throws, cushions, here we've got here on the bench. Now the flowers, if you wanted to really make it a proper accent, you make that purple as well. And here we've got our purple chairs and the rug going on, a bit of purple up here. And like I said before, when we had that yellow shelf, Sometimes you just choose one surface or one item, and you just are bold with the accent color. So here we just have this back wall. I don't have anything else that's purple, but that becomes the accent in the room and the focal point in the room. And I like the way that they've really made these 4 chairs look so glamorous with the velvet in this rich purple color here, which again brings your eye to the center of the room. Once again, an achromatic space, white and gray, but when you put a fully saturated color in it, the color really pops. So once again, we have an achromatic space here, but we've added a multicolored painting here, which this becomes the focal point in the room. And adds a lot of energy into the space. Otherwise, it would be quite a quiet space. And then finally, this is an interesting choice. By putting this very energetic, fully saturated hues painting here, we add a different energy to this space. It becomes the focal point. If this wasn't here, it could still be an extremely attractive space, but it would have a different mood. If you had this in very pale colors, it would be a softer feel, but by adding these energetic, saturated hues, we bring in dynamism into the space. And that's some examples of how to use accents in your interior spaces. Do think about, are you using the same color accent through the space? Are you putting it into different areas of the space so that your eye is traveling around the room? Are you considering using groups of 3s or 5s with your accent color? Or have you chosen to use one focal area, like a feature wall or an interesting chair, as your focal accent color in the room? So these are just some ideas of how to use accent colors to enliven your space. Hi, I'm Adrienne Jin, and in this talk we're going to look at color forecasting and how are trends determined. So here we have a quote from Laurie Pressman, who's the Vice President of the Pantone Color Institute, one of the leading color agencies in the world. And what Laurie says is color trend forecasting is being able to look at what's happening now, what we see is going to be happening in the future, and being able to glom onto those key trends, which means to take these key trends or leading trend indicators to see what the future looks like and what that means for color. So how do they do this? So several institutions announce the colors of the year and general color trends annually. And the main ones are the Pantone Color Institute and then the AkzoNobel Global Aesthetic Center, which does Dulux paint. And then there are also several very influential style agencies. And these style agencies and these institutes will go to many trade shows, fashion shows. They will go out around in the world to see what colors are happening. So the Pantone Color Institute is the most authoritative organization dealing with color. So Pantone creates a language that all those who belong to the world of design can easily use to communicate with each other. So this is not just interior design, this is also fashion design. So the Pantone Color Institute uses a large number of correspondents worldwide who will gather information that pertain to color trends. So they focus not only on fashion, but they also follow all aspects of life. that one way or another relate or influence color. So the color experts at the Institute will then analyze all of this information, which is a lot of photographs, pictures that people will take. They will put them all together and they will send them into the experts at the Pantone Color Institute, who will then analyze all this information and come up with color stories and the key trend color that they see coming forward for the next year. So the Pantone 2019 trend story is one of cravings. So these colors tempt the eye with very spicy reds, flamingo orange, and rich violets. We see a lot of these very warm colors coming out in the color trend direction. And the neutrals that they're talking about are butter, rum, and cappuccino, and a little bit of the brown. Okay. And they're looking at a grassy green color here as a cool color. Now, this mint green and pastel green is a huge color trend, which we will see more of later. And this whole story is very directional with fashion and with paint colors and with upholstery colors for furniture coming up from 2019 and going then for the next few years. And these were just some inspirational pictures that Pantone put out when they put out their trend information for this color story. So these very rich, warm colors and these very fruity, high saturation colors as well. Now, a huge color, which they were also talking about, is this mango orange color. And we will see a lot of that coming up. Orange is a huge color and yellow is a huge color in the various different saturations. So another of the trends that Pantone is talking about for colors is called Classico. And these are fundamental, basic, and everlasting and elegant colors. We have the swan white, and we have the tan, and then we have the deep teal blue, and gray, and burgundy, big color, wine red and burgundy coming out, and this very coral color. Now, Pantone has announced the coral, living coral as the color of the year. So this coral, which comes from the pink trend, which has been around since the turn of the millennium, is going a little bit warmer. So we're starting to see a lot more coral and salmon color. And here again, these were some pictures that came out with Pantone showing the deep gray, rich color scheme, but with this teal blue color. This forest green is a huge color trend, often used with the pink and the coral color. Very classic new trend for colors. And then they also have a suggestion of the celebration of multicultural for colors, where their trend spotters were really noticing how much travel and the collection of ethnic information was influencing the way people were using color. So these are very earthy colors, but we also have what they're calling Klein blue, which is this very, very saturated blue with a little bit of purple in it. A color that comes very much from places like Morocco, where you see this very, very bright blue. And it's a counteraction to this warm palette of the wine red and the coral and the mustard. So here we see the aesthetic of the celebration of multicultural from Pantone. It's a celebration of diversity. So it's very playful, and it is a collection of influences, the old and the new, the traditional, the experimental, the synthetic, and the organic. Now, Dulux and AkzoNobel Global Aesthetics Center release a research paper every year called Color Futures. And this forecasts color trends for the next 12 months. So this research brings together a group of international experts and trend watchers And they discover what they think will be the major global developments based on the social and design trends that they have observed in the year that they've been doing their research. And then from this process, AkzoNobel then choose a number of color trends which they promote for the coming year in their paint palette. Now, style agencies are independent agencies. They might be small agencies, they might be large, and they will go around to all these main shows, and they will go around with their cameras, taking pictures of people on the street, and all of these kind of things, and they will create a trend story as well. So we have a quote here: all the things that make up our lifestyle are produced by a multitude of companies. These companies need to have some pointers showing them the direction to advance so they remain trendy and in demand. And this is where style agencies come in, developing company concepts. Because everybody wants to sell their product. And if everybody's really different, they're afraid that people won't know what direction to go in with their purchasing. So if they create a cohesive story, people will see that they can buy the blue shoes in this store and the blue coat in that store and maybe the blue sofa over there, and it's all going to work together. So here are some of the kind of pictures that style agencies will take when they're out and about. They're always looking for something that's going to catch the eye. So they employ designers and artists and linguists and sociologists, lots of different people who they send out to take pictures of what they believe might be trends. So that might be the way a child puts their clothing together. It might be a scarf on a woman in India, but they're caught with the patterns and colors of that. Now, this information will go into a bank of images, and if they start seeing these colors coming out in different countries and different ways, they'll start going, well, this yellow seems to be an important color that's coming out from a lot of places. So several large agencies produce then these trend books annually. And these are of huge importance to manufacturers and designers. Some of the top style agencies include Nelly Rodi, Perclairs, Promo Steel, Carlin International, and Lee Idlecourt. And I've been working in the industry for a long time. Before I was in interiors, I was in fashion. And even back then, Promo Steel and Lee Idlecourt, I remember, were around a long time ago. So these are big established agencies working in fashion and interiors. There are also some trend-setting companies who show their trend-setting furniture ideas at the Milan Furniture Fair. And the Milan Furniture Fair, which happens every spring, really is the place for interior trends to be seen for the first time by people in the industry. And companies such as Cartel and Floss and Moroso will show their trend ideas, their colors, their shapes of their furniture, based on all of their own research. So here is something from Moroso that was in the Milan Furniture Fair in 2018, talking about the trends for 2019, 2020. And we can see right away the blue and the mustard yellow. Fashion is obviously a key place for trend spotters to look for color influence, because fashion can change much more quickly than interiors. So they will go to the fashion shows and they will spot what the key colors are coming and the key patterns and the key style trends, because you will start seeing these show up probably about 2 years later in interiors, because it takes that long to translate these trends into interior product. It takes much longer to produce interior product. So this bright yellow that was in the spring-summer 2018 fashion shows has shown up now in the 2019-2020 furniture collections. This very pale green, huge trend color, pastels are huge, are now seen in interiors product. This terrazzo product, which is huge, and this pale mint green color, very big trend color, as is pale blue. So all these lovely pastel colors, which showed up 2 years ago in fashion, are now showing up in interiors. It's very, very pale blue. We haven't seen so many pastels of this softness for about 100 years in interiors. So these were very big colors in the 1930s, 1920s and 1930s. And that whole trend, even to the shape of the furniture, is kind of going back to an Art Deco influence. And again, pinks. So the pinks, from very pale pink to the coral pinks. Pinks are such a big story. And here we see more richer pinks, like the flamingo pink. Again, big story. This idea of this very quilted furniture, that's a huge direction that furniture's going in. And then the trend spotters will go out on the street and take pictures of what people are wearing. And there are certain cities that are very well known for the creative way that people dress. And certainly when the shows are on in Paris, you get a lot of people that go and visit the shows, the fashion shows, and will dress creatively. London is a huge place that people from all over the world go to see how people dress in London, because London has a very eclectic style of dressing. So there's a lot of designers who are influenced by that. So these would have been some pictures of some creative dressing that some of the trend spotters took that might then be reflected in the pale blue or the bright yellow or this violet color that becomes part of a trend story. And they will look at details like shoes and bags, and they'll take pictures of all these things, because then this might relate to the black and white pattern trend, which is a big trend coming up. That is used to modernize and sharpen up the pale pastel colors. And pop culture. Pop culture is a big influence, and trend spotters will notice who the leading pop icons, actresses, singers, actors, sports personalities, what they're wearing. And that might go into a trend story. So here we see Rihanna a few years ago at the New York Metropolitan Museum. There's a huge fashion art event every year, and she wore this yellow outfit before yellow was a trend color, and now it's become a trend color. And also art. Trend spotters will notice what's happening in contemporary art. Or there might be a huge art exhibit on in one of the major cities in the world of traditional art, but maybe the colors, shapes, and form of that type of art then influence what might be happening in future trends. And certainly film as well can affect how trends go. So you might have a film that is huge internationally, and the colors, the styles, the setting of that film might have an influence on some of the trend aspects of what's happening in fashion and interiors as well. And certainly travel. This will affect where trend spotters will travel a lot to see what catches their eye. Here's Morocco, here's Venice, here's India, and see what colors might be colors that they start seeing elsewhere, and see how that might go into the whole trend story. Now, some designers feel that this development of some cool colors, like this very sharp Klein blue color that's coming out, are very much affected by the direction we're going in lighting, with LED lighting, which is a much bluer light. So the bluer light makes cooler colors look very good. So we're starting to see some of these very sharp blues coming in that wouldn't have been something we'd see in Northern Hemisphere in the past, because now we're using more blue light in our interiors. So here's a trend forecaster. This is what her name is Geraldine Wary. She's from the United Kingdom. And what she says is, identifying a trend is a continuous effort of compiling observations. It requires a lot of curiosity and interest in a wide array of subjects, ranging from art and design, reaching over to science, technology, socioeconomics, food, as well as travel. It's also a personal intuition and an eye for what's next. I'm constantly collecting ideas and images. Once I see there's a flurry of images with a common element, it's very easy for me to see that this is a trend. Sometimes a single image can be so powerful that it triggers an instant conviction that it will be a trend. This is somebody who's a professional trend spotter, and this is her philosophy of how she works. So it's very important for designers to have an idea of what's been happening in the last 50 or 100 years, because certainly what's happening now in our trends is very much reflective of what was happening in the 1920s with regards to shape, pattern, and color. So I'm Adrienne Chin, and in this talk we're going to look at some of the color trends in the 20th century in European interiors. And this is important because this very much relates to what's happening in upcoming interior trends. So the Victorian and Edwardian color palettes of the early 1900s feature primarily warm colors. You can see over here a lot of the warm colors. Yes? The overall tone is soft and subdued rather than having a lot of bright colors. This is a picture of a Victorian interior of the time. You can see very subdued greens, very deep oranges, a lot of brown. So they're very on the darker side of colors. So this was, as you can see, a lot of brown here, and black navy. So very deep, rich colors, not very bright or saturated. And this is a typical Victorian interior with a very dark green and this Persian rug in the deep reds and oranges and a lot of dark wood. So the Victorians liked to enclose themselves in their properties because they felt there was a lot of danger and disease and all sorts of things outside their properties. They wanted to be very, very comfortable and enclosed. And this trend of the dark colors is interesting because at the turn of this past millennium, we saw the start of the idea of very dark interiors ourselves, where the interiors are painted dark gray and navy blue and dark green and black. And we hadn't seen that trend really since Victorian times. So it was a 100-year cycle for these very dark colors to suddenly come up again. So let's keep thought for this 100-year cycle because it is interesting. So these are the color trends for 1919, 1920, 100 years ago. These were the actual colors that were popular 100 years ago. Now, these are the colors that are popular in 2019, 2020. You can see that there are some very similar colors. Okay? We're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of the mustardy yellows here. We're seeing this orange here. We're seeing a lot of gray here. We're seeing this green here. Same green, exactly. Look at the pink, same pink. So 100-year color cycle. A lot of the colors now popular were popular 100 years ago. So we're seeing a direct connection of the color cycle coming out. So this is an interior in London of an Art Deco property called Eltham Palace. And look at the color of the upholstery, this salmon pink color, this coral color. And this is the trend color right now, 2019. And this was the trend color in 1919. So 100%, a 100-year cycle going on there with the color. Notice the black and white geometric patterns going on here. We're going to see a lot more in another talk about the black and white patterns that are becoming very popular for the next few years in interiors. Now here is a picture that was in the Milan Furniture Fair last year in 2018, talking about the upcoming trends for the next few years in interiors. And what I would say is this feels very similar to an Art Deco interior, but in an updated, modern way. It's got the very soft Art Deco pastel colors, has a lot of these round shapes, which are very Art Deco. It has a lot of these vertical shapes, which are very Art Deco. But you can see it's modern because this is very modern type of upholstery here. You know, there are modern elements, but this certainly does seem to hark back to Art Deco design. So, moving on. The Atomic Age era in the 1950s had color palettes which were quite bright compared to the earlier color palettes, which were either very dark, the Victorians, or a more muted color palette and pastels of the Art Deco period. So this was reflective of a period of great optimism in the world, where there was a lot of idea of going to space. People hadn't gone to space yet, but they had put the satellites up there. So there's a lot of the idea of expanding out of the Earth into the world. So there was a lot of idea of optimism and expansion, and that was reflected in the colors becoming very much more optimistic. And these were reflected in the 1950s interiors, these very bright. So notice the shape of the furniture. The legs are the shape of the satellite feet. So the furniture in the 1950s and early 1960s was very much influenced by the shape of the satellites being sent up to the atmosphere. Now this is a modern take. This is a modern designer, Kelly Wearstler from the United States. New furniture, she developed this new furniture, but notice the satellite legs, yes, influenced by the Atomic Age. And she has used Atomic Age geometrics, but she's muted the palette down for the modern era, which now we're going into a more pastel color. If this was actually an Atomic Age room, these colors would be brighter and clearer. Then now we move into the psychedelic age, the 1960s. time of the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and psychedelia and all of this, interest from India. And so because of the interest from India, with all these rock groups going out to India and all of this, they're bringing these very saturated colors back from India. And this gets translated into the color palette of the 1960s and 1970s, this very vibrant, saturated palette. And this is a modern designer, Jonathan Adler, again from the United States, and he's very influenced by the shape of furniture from the 60s and the 1970s. This is all new furniture, but it's all designed like the 1960s and the 1970s. And he has used some very vibrant colors here, and the orange, a huge color in the 60s and 70s. So we can see how that has influenced some modern designers. Then what happened? What happened? We had this very vibrant color happening in the 60s and 70s, and then what happens, you know, in interiors, people get tired of one thing and then they want something very different. So we'd had about 30 years of vibrant colors, and then suddenly people went, I don't want any vibrant color anymore, I've had enough. So we want to be very natural, we want to do yoga and be very zen and very tranquil. So we go into this very neutral palette in the 1990s, which is still popular. It really started in the late 1980s, certainly the 1990s. And you can see our palette now is no longer the saturated palette. It's now gotten very earthy, and a lot of neutral colors and grays are coming in now. And if there are any bright colors in this palette, you can see there's still natural colors, the green and the blue, but everything else is quite neutral. Very typical design in the 1990s here. Kelly Hoppen, neutral, 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 no saturated colors at all. Very tranquil, very quiet. And then we hit the millennium, and suddenly we start getting some very clear, vibrant colors coming through. Violet starts coming in. Turquoise starts coming in. Orange starts coming in. So they're very clear, bright colors that come in at the turn of the millennium. And here's an example from the designer Daniel Hopwood in London, an interior from the early 2000s, and you can see these very clear, bright colors coming back. But also, at the turn of the millennium, as I mentioned before, you were starting to see these dark rooms come in, which reflect very much what was happening in Victorian times 100 years ago. So we have the clear colors coming out, but we also have a very moody palette coming out at the turn of the century. So we have the two options, the two directions coming out at that time. So here's another example from a designer in London called Abigail Ahern. She's very well known as designing rooms with this very dark palette. But notice, she's got the walls and large pieces of furniture in the dark palette, but she's brought in saturated hues as her accent, which is not something the Victorians did. Victorians just kept it all very dark and moody. So what I would like to just round up with here is that the trends of the 20th century do influence the trends that are coming up in the 21st century. And in particular, what we will be looking at are the Art Deco trend colors and shapes from 100 years ago, and how they are now influencing the colors, shapes, and patterns coming up for the next 10-year period. I'm Etienne Chin, and in this presentation we're going to talk about the upcoming interior color trends. So the top interior color trends coming up for this year and the next few years include, in particular, the new pastels. Pastels are a big story this year, and they come from fashion, where the pastels were shown a few years ago, and now they've been interpreted into interiors. So pastels are a reaction to the very dark grays and very dark greens, which have been so popular for the last few years since the turn of the millennium. And now the feeling is that we want to lighten our interiors. We want a fresher feeling in our interiors. So many furniture brands at the Milan Furniture Show recently showed products, furniture, lighting, carpet, and accessories in these new pastel tints. So with the new pastels, some of the key colors are blush pink, which has been popular for the last almost 20 years now and continues to be popular. Light mint green is a huge trend color in interiors. So we see it here, this very pale green color. Lemon yellow, sharp yellow is very popular. Lilac, we haven't seen lilac very much in interiors. So here we have our pink, but they've done the lilac up here. So that is also very popular. Pale blue, very sky powder blue, apricot orange, peach, light coral, all of these kind of ice cream colors are very, very popular. And the neutrals that are becoming very popular are light mushroom and the color of toast, these kind of warm, mushroomy neutrals. So a lot of these images that you see were from the Milan Furniture Fair recently, and you can see a lot of the trend pastels and the shapes of furniture coming in and how that is coming forward in interiors. So we see on this slide, here we have a room set that was part of the Milan Furniture Fair last year, and you can see some of the lovely soft pastel colors in this room set, pale blue, pale peach, some of the lilac here, pale yellow. So these, you can see, are often used together in one room because they're the same level of intensity, the same saturation. You can have quite a few colors, but they all go together because they're the same softness. And here you can see again these colors, the pink, the pale yellow, pale green, the peach orange, the lilac, and the mushroom. Key color trends coming up in interiors. And here we see a larger version of that room. Now, I also want to point out some of the shape trends that we will discuss tomorrow. And these are circles, a lot of circles being shown in furniture and lighting. We see circles in patterns. Here is a circle that's divided in half. You'll see that a lot in pattern. You'll see these arch shapes. So this lamp, you see this arch shape, and you will see it going as an arch or an inverted arch shape. You will see verticals. You will see a lot of screens coming in. Screens haven't been this big since the 1920s. So 100 years ago, screens were huge, and now they're going to be big again. And I think that's a lot to do with the way that we're living, where a lot of us have smaller places, and we want to divide space up, but we can't put walls in. So we start going to the screens again. And the use of brass is huge, and this round shape of furniture here, which goes very much back to the 1920s and 1930s tub chair design. So here we see a room. Again, this was a room set at the Milan Furniture Fair, and it shows the pale yellow color that they've used on the walls, and then a more vibrant lemon yellow that they've used on the upholstery. So this was a room that people could go in and have their coffee, and they've illustrated this with color trends and also the shape trends, the round circles and the curved back furniture that we're talking about. You will often see these pale colors combined together. So here on a piece of furniture, we're seeing the yellow, the pink, the pale blue, and the soft peach color, all combined in the same piece of upholstery. So another trend, you'll see black used as a sharp accent to go with the pale colors. So here we've got the little tables in the black. Here again, some pale yellow. We've got in the space here with that pale green and some of that purple. And here we've got that lovely pale lemon yellow with some of the pink trend. So we're mixing up these colors, but we're keeping the same intensity. Some very, very soft interiors here. This very, very whisper pink in this palette is shown in this room display here. Curved back sofas, just those, and the chairs. Very pale pink curtains, very pale pink piece of furniture here, and this rug. So this is a monochromatic color scheme, all in the tints of pink. And again, some more of the pink. And here we've got the pink. Now, another trend that's coming up is to paint walls different colors. So you might paint 3 walls in the pink and have 1 wall in the pale purple or pale blue. And here we have the pink again. And this chair, very typical now, rounded back and circular seat. And the pink tables, and notice that arch shape I mentioned. You're going to see a lot of that. So when we see these pastel colors, we'll often see black used in a very linear way, which sharpens up the pastels. A lot of rugs are going to have the pastels with linear black in them. And you will see very dark greens used with the pink quite often, and circular elements on walls and furniture. Now moving on to peach, again you're seeing this layering of these ice cream colors, not just the peach, but you're seeing the peach with the yellow. And this is actually a very, very pale blue, it's not white. So we're starting to see these pastels on the woodwork instead of white. You're not seeing a lot of white at all, actually. You're seeing pastel colors used instead. Here we've got that very pale blue and the peach, and we've got the lilac sofa. And we've got a very pale pinky coral rug. So layering all these colors. Now this green, now I want to show you this. This is an actual Art Deco 1920s color palette here. You've got this forest green, you've got this mint green, you've got peach, you've got this pale pinky peach, and going to the darker peach. This is from 100 years ago. Look at the colors here. Trend colors. It's almost exactly the same color palette. So it is very interesting to see in interiors that there seems to be very much a 100-year color cycle. And this combination of peach and green is a huge trend. And here we see lovely layers of these peaches, this monochromatic color scheme. But you see the pale peach and the mango peach and the mid-peach color and a little bit of the yellow. It's a very warm palette. It's not a palette we've really seen for a long time, this very light, fresh palette. Now light green. Green is a huge color. Here we see this pale green chair. So we're seeing it in furniture. We're seeing it in fabric colors. Here we see the green chair with a pale blue seat. And here we're seeing very pale green wall. We're seeing the mango light, mango shelf, lilac table. It's almost that you don't almost see the color, it's so pale, but it is there, it's not white. And as I said, the green and red and the green and pink combination, classic complementary color combination, red and green, but we're seeing it with pale green and deep red, or pale green and pale pink. We've seen this picture already, but this is a very good illustration of how important this pale green is becoming. And the use of terrazzo a huge trend. And you can see here an exterior building painted again in this pale green and pale peachy pink color. Now, lilac is not an interior color we've really seen at all for many, many, many years. Purples are very hard to live with in interiors, but if they're whisper lilac, almost a beigey lilac color, they're much easier to live with. And here they've just washed the wood with a lilac wash, so that becomes very soft. And as I said, this grayed lilac color, it's almost gray, but it's got a hint of the lilac in it, just to lift it a bit. That's certainly a trend. And this is the same here. It almost looks gray, but there is a hint of lilac in that. So we see the layering of colors. We see our mango orange, and we see our pale blue. And if you remember again, blue and orange are complementary colors, but we're seeing a lot of the pale blue, 80%, and the accent of the mango orange. The layering of blues and greens, look at the shape of the furniture there, very rounded shapes, nothing very angular. And here we've got our blue walls with our accent orange, touch of orange. So here we have some of the pale blue on the wall. So pale blue is a wall color, very big color. We're going to talk about this in another talk. Hexagonal shapes, a big pattern shape, black and white together, a big pattern shape. But we have our pale blue here and our orange in another room, our complementary colors. And now we get into our chief neutral color trend, which is mushroom. So it's a very grayed neutral. It's not a warm neutral like sand or beige. It's a very grayed neutral like mushrooms. So this is our big neutral trend that you're going to be seeing. It's mushroom, a very grayed neutral, you can see. It's a beige that has a lot of gray in it. And here, done in a very fun way on walls. But again, it has gray, it has the mushroom, dark mushroom, and the light mushroom, all with an element of gray in that neutral beige color. And then another trend, very different from the pastels, is the use of rainbow palettes in a space. So here we see it on shelving. Here we see it on lighting. And now another direction I want to talk about, we've spoken about the pastels, which are the big story, but there are also some very saturated colors that are important. And these are very much evident in the fashion trends from a few years ago. So we have bright yellow, very bright, sharp yellow, deep, dark red, and we also have this blue, which is being called Klein blue. It's a very purpley blue. It's not like a clear, saturated blue. It's got a lot of purple in it. And it was influenced by an artist called Yves Klein. It was his favorite color in his palette, and it was very influenced by the same color from countries like Morocco, where this color is very important in some of the designs. So let's look at this bright yellow. It's a very clear, sharp, bright yellow. And because of the rise of the use of grays in interiors, this sharp color looks quite fresh against grays. It really lifts the gray. So this color used as an accent is quite important. And you're starting to see it in furniture. And this was the room set for one of the main furniture companies at Milan Furniture Fair, and you can see they've used a slightly paler version of the yellow, but it was the floor and in upholstery, so you can see how important yellow is in the upcoming trends. Kitchen, done in bright yellow. So it's a commitment, because if you're spending a lot of money to do this, you're committing to this color for quite a long time. So that's why color trends in interiors last quite a lot longer than color trends in fashion. We really are looking at color trends having about a 10-year lifespan, usually in interiors. So we have mustard yellow. So we were looking at the clear yellow. Now we also have a very orangey yellow, mustard yellow, that's becoming extremely popular. We see it here. Now, these arch shapes, which I mentioned, here we have the door in an arch shape, and we have a painted wall in an arch shape. So these arch shapes, extremely big pattern trend. So again, we have the mustard yellow here with the gray. Mustard yellow looks particularly good with gray. So I believe that this is another reason this color has become quite strong. And we see it here with some furniture, these little poofs and footstools, all in these warm colors. The mango, the yellow, the mushroom, a little bit of blue back there. So some of these trend colors coming out in furniture. And let's look at this wine red. So we see this very deep, deep blood red color leaning towards brick. So it isn't a bright red, it's a very dark, moody red. And we see it here. Again, this was a room set at one of the fairs, very, very moody. But you can see how it's being used on woodwork as well as walls. Furniture. That very deep red on furniture. Now, when you start seeing furniture companies committing to colors like that, it shows how important they believe these colors are, because furniture takes quite some time to develop, and people buy it to have it for a long period of time. So a company is not going to invest in making furniture in these kind of colors unless they believe these colors are going to be lasting for a while. And here we see some flooring done in the deep red color. This was a wine bar area at Milan Furniture Fair last year, all done in this deep brick red color, the wine red color, and a slightly pinker version of the wine red down here. And that was a central item in the Milan Furniture Fair. Here we're seeing it with the mango orange, the bright yellow, the Klein blue, deep gray, wine red there. So you're seeing how they're layering now. We saw the layering of the pastels. Now we're seeing the layering of the more saturated colors. And here we have our Klein blue. Furniture again, commitment to furniture, obviously based on a spider pattern here. But this kind of shape with this vertical back, that's a very Art Deco shape. Blue. So here we're seeing it as a bit of paint between two rooms and a piece of furniture made in this blue. Mango, I've mentioned mango a few times. So it's warmer than mustard yellow. It goes more to the orange side of things, and very bright, very vibrant. This would be a space where you would work in this kind of space. This is a very energetic type of color. So you're seeing a lot of desks and chairs done in this color, good for office spaces. And we've got an orange space here. Orange hasn't been this important since the 1970s, when orange was one of the main trend colors. Hi, I'm Yipian Chen, and in this presentation we're going to look at solid color trends in home furnishings. So we looked earlier at some of the overall trends, the pastels and a few of these very saturated colors. In this talk we'll look in more detail at some of these color trends. So in this example here we have pink and mustard. And as I mentioned before, pink is a huge color in all its various shades, but we're seeing it becoming a bit warmer instead of quite as pink as it was before. And quite often we'll see it used with colors like the lemon yellow, which is quite a trend color. So this is an unusual way of using the colors, but now we're looking at new directions of how to use colors. The thing that is working for these, what's making these work together, is that they're the same intensity, they're the same saturation level. And here, once again, we see the very pale pink here, and the accent of the focal point of the bath in the lemon yellow color. And as we saw yesterday, we see the pink with pale blue, and this is a whisper pink. Again, we're getting away from just bright white, and we're getting into very, very pale tints of color when we're doing white. And in this picture, we see a very contemporary bathroom where we have the pink tile. You can see it's a tone of pink. They're very grayed pink tile. Shown with some gray stone here on the vanity top, the circular sink again, a circular bathtub. Now notice the black detailing on the taps and the frames and the lighting. You'll see a lot of black coming out as a detail feature in these pastel rooms to sharpen them up and make them look quite a lot more modern. Here we have a darker version of the pink. Now, it's not a sweet pink. It's very much like a plaster pink color. It's got a lot of warmth in it. It's veering towards almost a terracotta color, but it's still pink. And this becomes a much more neutral type of pink. It's not masculine and it's not feminine. It can be used for any kind of situation. And because of the popularity of pinks, we see also the very strong, what we call the flamingo pink, after the flamingo bird. And here we see it in some small quantities in a modern kitchen, used with orange. And this is another quite dynamic combination. Notice how saturated both the colors are. So the orange is balancing the saturation of the pink. Now we have this lovely combination you'll start seeing a lot of, is you have the pale pink with the pale blue. And pale blue is such a big trend color. Circles, also hugely a trend shape. You see it here. And notice again the black detailing, which really modernizes these pastel colors. Now moving on to the pale blue, which we saw in the last picture, here we are seeing it used a very great deal, more than it's been used for many years really. So here we're seeing an achromatic room, gray, white, black, but modernized with a feature wall in a pale blue, which softens the room. Here we're seeing a traditional room, a sitting room, in monochromatic blue scheme here, with the very, very, very whisper blue on the walls, a deeper blue on the sofa, and another blue here on the cushion, and a pale blue here, and a different blue. So you can see a lot of the blues being used here. Notice the circular shape in the rug, another big trend. So move on here. So all these shades of blue, but particularly the very pale blue is important. Here we see it in a child's bedroom. We have the cowboy wallpaper with the horses, the teepee. But here again on a feature wall, we have a very pale blue wall, and it's brought through into this slightly blue-green pastel bedding over here. And then this modern bathroom, which you would expect would normally just be painted white, is very much enlivened by painting it blue. And now this dark forest green is a huge trend color. You'll often see this with pink or with peach and with the blue as a counteraction to the softer colors. And in this large open plan kitchen sitting area, once again, it's fairly white, but it's not pure white other than the ceiling. You can see that the wall is very pale blue, and then the accents are brought in with the refrigerator and the accessories over here and the chair over here. Now notice this rug, black and white stripe rug, and I just want to point out the black and white stripe in the rug here. Black and white geometric patterns and stripes are a huge trend. And you'll see them a lot in rugs, in wallpapers, and in the fabric on sofas and chairs. We'll look at that again shortly. But you can see how it counteracts the kind of sweet pastel quality of the lighter colors. Here again, modern kitchen. Again, you would have expected this to be white, but now to update it, it's all in this very soft powder blue, and I very much like these overscaled triangular lights in the pale blue as well. And over here in a dining room, we have analogous color scheme. It's not monochromatic blue because these are colors that are beside each other on the color wheel. We have a very light mauve violet chair. We have the pale blue here in some vases, a darker blue in some other vases, and a very, very, very whisper blue on the wall. Moving on to the wine red color trend, which we saw in our last talk being introduced. Now, this is not a bright, bright fire engine red. This is like a very rich red, almost the color of brick. So here we see it in the hallway on the walls, and this warms up the space, makes it feel very welcoming and intimate. And over in the bathroom, we're seeing a lot of color being used in bathrooms. So here they have the side of the bath in the brick red, this wine red color, and we see the tiles, and we see the paint, and we see the unit here, all in this very deep red. And the pattern in the floor tiles, again, has this very deep red in a very wavy pattern to break up the solid quality of the red elsewhere. A lot of furniture is being made in these trend colors. Here we see an updated version of the bentwood chair, again in the wine red. We see a table here with the legs in the wine red and shown with pale green on the walls. And in a traditional room here, we see the very dark wine red on traditional furniture and curtains and a rug and some Chinese chairs here, shown with green in the other room. So this is a complementary color scheme, green and red being opposite each other on the color wheel. And here we have red as well. We're getting into the various different tints and tones and shades of red. So this is a more warm red, a more peachy red. We see it on the stools here. A lot of work being done on tiles in the trend story. You'll see a lot of interesting things. And here we see the red combined with quite a mango orange color. So it's a very vivid space. Now, Klein blue, this very bright blue, purpley blue, that's also a big trend. Here we see it in the dining room. And I want to point out the shapes of these chairs, very Art Deco shape. Very nice detail here, almost like the buttons on a shirt. And I want to point out this as well. This is an antique piece of furniture, a sideboard from the 1930s, and you can see how well it's sitting with this contemporary design style. Over here we have the Klein blue in some chairs around the white table. Again, we're picking it up in details like a vase over here. And in this picture we see a bathroom. You can see once again a lot of color in a bathroom instead of just white. Painted the walls very dark blue. We have the blue tiles. A very big trend is to put the tiles in a vertical way instead of horizontal. And notice the black detailing, the black sink, the black accessories, the black worktop here. So these are very trend colors. If you're doing a bathroom in a color like this, very deep color, you have to make sure the lighting is extremely good so that it's easy to see yourself in the mirror. And again, a few other items of furniture and lighting in this Klein blue. We have the chair here, a rug, some cushions, a table, a light. So when manufacturers are committing to using these colors in their product, which they take a long time developing and doing prototypes and producing, we know that they feel it's a major trend and it's something that's going to be around for a while. And again, in a traditional room, you can use these colors, and they update traditional styling when you are aware of the colors that are important and bring the rooms into a more modern context. So here we have the very deep blue on all of the woodwork, and then brought into chairs and the sofa as well. Now let's get on to green. Green is one of the big colors that has become very at the forefront of the trends. So in this room we have a pale green on the walls, but then the chimney breast has got this dark forest green on it, which I mentioned, the forest green, how important that is. And here we even have a little poof in the dark green. So we're going to be really looking at a lot of greens. I think this has a lot to do with the way that we're all around the world now thinking much more of the ecology and climate, so it's bringing an upsurgence to these colors of blue and green, and we want to bring them into our environments. Here, instead of what you would expect to be a very white traditional kitchen, they have painted all the cabinetry in a very pale green, which once again updates it. And here we have a combination now of a very pale tone of green on the walls. It has a lot of gray in it, there's still a bit of green, mixed with the mushroom color on the sofa here, which is our new trend neutral color. And here we have our mint green on a big chandelier, modern chandelier, and on the chairs around the table here. So again, it's not a color you would have expected to see recently, but now with green being so on trend, you're seeing it into spaces where maybe the colors might have been more neutral before. Also in this case, notice the designer has created that visual triangle. We have the feature at the ceiling and the chairs, so it's creating that very pleasing visual triangle. Over here, again, once again, very pale green on the walls. Notice that all the skirting boards here are also painted green instead of white. So we're looking at bringing the green right through on all the surfaces. And notice how the black furniture, the chairs and the shelving, again, you can really notice them. They become very graphic in their quality against the pale green walls. Over here, once again, we have the pale green on a wall in a hallway. We have the black and white rug with various geometric shapes in it, very on trend. We notice the black of the staircase here, and we've got a little punch of the complementary color red in front of the green wall as a bit of an accent in this space. Moving on to lilac. So once again, we're looking through a lot of different colors and how they are coming up in our trend story for interiors. Here we have the very pale lilac, which you normally wouldn't use in a study or a library, but here now we're using these kind of colors in new ways. So they've put it in a library with a piece of modern art. And over here we have a huge paint effect on the wall. This can also be wallpaper, and this is creating very watery lilac effect on the wall, brought in as an accent on a cushion here to bring it through. And we have some different tones of the purple over the lampshade and on the vase, creating a visual triangle once again. Very, very pale lilac sofa. Works very well with the gray concrete on the walls. Almost looking gray, but just has that little bit of whisper lilac in it. Remember from the color wheel, the opposite of lilac, violet on the color wheel is yellow. So here, a throw in yellow and lilac is perfect accent on the sofa. And in this picture, we see a table, a dining table that has been made in this very tone of the violet color, this pale purple, almost gray, but you can see that it has the violet color in it. And it looks very good with the deeper charcoal gray colors here and enlivens the space. Here in a bedroom, lilac and purple and violet, these colors are more typical to see in a bedroom. They're a very relaxing color to have when you're trying to sleep. So here we have a lot of bedding that is being made in these colors of the pale violet. And over here we have, again, this rug. You would think it's almost gray, but it's actually a very pale violet, as is the sofa. It's gray with a little bit of the violet in it. So you're seeing it used in very subtle ways, and here notice the geometric cushion, the dotted cushion, and the very peachy pink color, this living coral pale color used as an accent. Now we get on to mushroom and peach. So another two big trend colors, mushroom on the walls here, this warm neutral being used quite a bit as the main neutral, and every tone, tint, and shade of orange is important. Here we have our peach color. They put it on a bit of fabric here as artwork, but notice as well that the furniture is quite low backed with very thick arms, very comfortable looking. This is a trend shape for furniture, to be very low backed and very padded to make it look quite comfortable. In a more traditional room, we have the room updated by painting it pale peach color over here. And over here, we have a sofa very similar to the one that we just saw, low backed, thick arms, in the peach color, links very well with the terracotta brick wall and updates this contemporary apartment. Over here we have a chair in the peach with the whisper peach on the wall in geometric shapes. So a lot of people are starting to paint the geometric shapes and circles actually onto the wall. We have our legs in a bit of that satellite shape. And here another chair in the peach. A basket in the peach, and whisper peach on the wall, and notice these square and triangular shapes in the rug, again a little bit of the peach and the gray there, geometrics and triangles being very popular as trends for patterns. Here again, a sofa in the peach. It's unexpected. Normally you would expect to see this in white or perhaps gray, but it really updates it when you start putting it in one of these ice cream pastel colors. And a collection here in a study of the green, pale green, and the pale peach, with shelving made in these two colors and accessories made in these two colors. Bedding made with the peach, and more chair, another chair, a light, cushions, pale green as well. So again, notice these color combinations being used. Notice the black detailing on the chairs and on the table over here. You really notice how graphic the black is looking. And peach on a very traditional door, very much updates it. And in a white bathroom, instead of tile or wall being peach, they've put a curtain on the window in the peach color. So if you don't want to commit to spending money on product in these new colors, maybe just put a curtain or just do some painting in these colors to update the space. And over here, a deeper tone of the peach as cushions, used with the green again here on 2 tables. So you might have 2 wooden tables or 2 white tables, and if you just paint them in these new trend colors, it will update the space. A great way of bringing in these trend colors in spaces without committing a huge amount of money is to use them in accessories like cushions. And now we're looking into yellow, so we have it on the bedding, on the cushions, but also notice that the wall is painted very pale yellow. So where you might have thought to have a white wall before, do think about using one of these pale tints of green or blue or yellow or pink, and that would really update the space. Yellow as an accessory, here on a pot, on a frame, some books, little details. Again, do notice this pale yellow wall, which updates the space, makes it feel very sunny. And then in a deeper, brighter tone over here, throw, cushions. Notice the geometric shape, this graphic lines on the cushions. Bright yellow flowers. So another way to update a neutral space is to bring in one of these trend colors as an accent. And here we see the combination of the pale blue on the walls and furniture with feature focal point yellow sofa, which draws your eye. And more upholstered furniture in a nice bright yellow color. Yellow looks really great with gray, so if you have one of these achromatic spaces, do consider using a very bright yellow as an accent color because it looks very good. And here a traditional sofa upholstered in this very on-trend yellow, bright yellow, and they've brought it in a little bit in the pictures as well. Again, over here with gray, as I said before, the bright yellow looks very, very good with the gray. It really brightens it up. So we have a slip cover on a chair, we have some cushions and some curtains. And over here, yellow on the chairs as well, brought through into some tiles into the kitchen area. And again, so you're seeing a lot of this bright yellow on upholstered furniture, sofas and chairs that have a lot of fabric, which is an unusual way to use these colors. So again, think about flipping around and using these brighter colors on the actual furniture. So we see one of these, again, very low-backed sofas, wide arms, very on-trend shape, huge ottoman, and then bringing through, if you remember when you're using a bright color, do try to bring it around the space. So in a lampshade, which brings your eye up into the room. And here we have a combination of the pale yellow on the wall and on the chairs, but combined with the mustard color of the wood in this kitchen, which makes a very warm, inviting space in the morning. And we have classic combination of blue and yellow. Here we have our deeper blue. It's a soft blue, but a deeper tone on the walls with yellow accessories. Notice the black and white rug again, which sharpens up all of these softer colors. Notice the circles, these kind of shapes. Notice the inverted arch. Notice the black detailing. So these are all trend elements. And then over here in a more traditional room, we have the blue on the walls, and then velvet used in this mustard yellow on the chair and the cushion for your accessories. Now over here we're getting into now mustard, which is a warmer tone of yellow. It's not that bright yellow. So here we have a mustard leather sofa. It's almost neutral, really, but adds some real life to this gray achromatic space. Once again, notice your stripe on the throw here. Notice your element, geometric element on the rug. Over here we have our mushroom walls, that very slightly pinky neutral color. We've got the mushroom stone on the back of this shelving, and we've got the mushroom element in these geometric rugs, but enlivened with the mustard on the chairs. A little bit of a mustard detail in the rug over here. Now in this bedroom, we've got our lovely pale green walls, which are nice and easy to live with in a bedroom, but we've enlivened the space with a very contemporary shaped bed in that vivid yellow color. And in a more traditional room, we have a very deep gray with a blue element to it. It's almost a blue-gray color, and we've enlivened that space by covering these traditional chairs and ottoman in the mustard yellow color as well. A big trend for furniture is to have these skirts which cover the legs, and that is something that's been coming in the last year or so and will continue to be a very popular development. We briefly looked at the rainbow trend before, and once again we have an element here in a graphic on the wall to bring your eye in a long space, a corridor. And over here we see it in a rug, and it's tied together with the blues and the reds and the green, yellow, brought out from the rug, and a piece of art that has the rainbow colors in it as well. And again, in a more traditional room, we're seeing it enlivened by the saturated, these fully saturated hues of the rainbow colors in different colors of velvet, softened with this nice blue-green wallpaper in the Chinese style. And in a bedroom over here, teenager's bedroom, very creative use of the rainbow effect on the ceiling over the bed area. And then a very simple way of bringing it into a modern space is to cover each chair in a different saturated hue from the rainbow.